are here, but we have Anthony here, which is great. And he went to Notre Dame, and he's a senior there. He's graduating this year. I mean, he already graduated, and he did track at Colgate, I believe. And also for this panel, even though it's like student athletes, you could ask any questions related to like college applications. We don't want to limit it to just student athletes. And Anthony, if you want to introduce yourself a bit more, like state your experiences and things like that, that'd be great. And then we'll move on to audience Q&A, which Samuel will be moderating.
Okay, perfect. So hi, I'm Anthony. I graduated from Notre Dame this year, but I originally started out my college career at U Chicago running track and field. And then after 2 years, I transferred to Notre Dame. I ran club track there, but not really like varsity there. And then this summer, I just started out working as a research analyst at an investment management company. So yeah, whatever you guys have questions about, I'm just happy to help, and I'm here for you guys.
Yeah, awesome. So if anyone has any questions, just drop in the chat, and I'll hand it off to Samuel, who'll like ask some questions too. Yeah.
So before we begin with the audience questions, I think this is a question that we had from our side itself. It's like, how did you, like, this is the most basic question, like, how did you balance both academics and track? Because like, I think everyone's trying to find the perfect balance.
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, I guess. Like for me, it was something I just had to like kind of learn as I tried, or because originally I was really bad at balancing that. Because it's like you have to balance like your academics, track, and then also kind of like your own social life. So there's like really three main things there. I don't know. I think my advice would be like just to try to stay ahead of things like academically. So like you don't really ever get behind, and then you're kind of like scrambling. And then my other main thing would always just be to recommend like always making sure you have time for yourself also. Like it's important to like focus on academics and athletics also, but I think like my biggest issue, especially at U Chicago, was maybe focusing a little bit too much on those two and just not really like having time like for myself or like mental health or anything like that. But it's really also like depends on the person. Like each person like has their own balance and what really works for them. But yeah, it's really like a trial and error thing, I guess, just to kind of test and see what works for you really.
Definitely. So like talking about that balance again, like do you feel that because you're doing two tasks at once, right? And both are pretty demanding from both the perspectives. So do you ever feel like you're giving like 70-30 to like it's a bit disproportionate, or do you feel like you're always giving 100% for both?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So like in terms of like time allocation, I'd say it was like 65-35 between like academics and then track. Like just based on my schedule, like I would wake up and then like go to class from like 9 to 12, and then I'd practice from 12 to 3, and pretty much just the rest of the day would be like either if I had a night class or just doing stuff related to school. But yeah, like whenever I would like have that like dedicated time for each, I would definitely make sure that you're like 100% focused on each instead of like instead of like, I don't know, maybe like just doing like trying to do both, or like I don't know, like trying to do like your homework when you're at practice or something. I would definitely make sure there's like independent time for each.
Perfect. That's amazing to hear. I think we have a question from the audience via direct chat. It says, how is the recruitment process like for student athletes, or how is it?
Yeah, so I would say it really depends on the sport. So for track, it's kind of interesting because you pretty much kind of have to like pitch yourself. Like they don't really find you. Like for me, there was like an information form I had to fill out. And it wasn't like kind of like the traditional, like where like the coach like reaches out and contact you. Like I like really had to like contact them. But then from there, like I took a visit to the campus, like stayed overnight just to kind of meet the team and just kind of like see like what the culture was like there. Yeah, so like that part was pretty traditional.
Another question is, it's not about college, but also about investment banking. How are you liking investment banking thus far?
I like it. It's definitely a big adjustment from school, just in terms of like the hours is the biggest thing.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
but I'm fine with working long hours.
oh yeah. Um, do you have like anything specific about investment banking that you're like wondering
Like
about
the culture, work culture,
culture?
like how do you get into it?
So I would say a lot of it is networking, I think, but I like you also kind of have to have like the resume too. So it's kind of like a balance between both. Like for me, I was able to really get my job offer at this place just from like the Notre Dame network, so that was a big part of it. But also like they really considered me because I had the resume as well. So it's really like kind of like a 50-50 almost.
Okay.
So like talking about that, like having like a professional but like doing sports as well. So like do you feel ever feel like it's a weird transition, or do you feel that you're able to handle both pretty well? And like, no, I'm not talking about like the workload, but I'm just talking about like a personality, that you have professional personality as well, but you played sport as well. Like how does that feel?
Yeah, I'd say like the work environment is definitely very intense. So I think like transitioning from a sport or just any sport really that's like also very competitive, I feel like it kind of fits me. Just the fact that the work environment is also pretty competitive as well. Um, but yeah,
So So yeah, we have one more question from the audience. It says, what does your typical day look like a schedule look like for you, like a week or a day?
is that like referring to like my schedule now or just what it was kind of like at school?
Yeah, like at school, like we used to.
Okay, yeah. So at U Chicago when I was on the track team, um, like a typical like practice day where we would pretty much do something every day. I would like schedule my classes in the morning, so like either from like 8 to 12 or like 9 to 12. Like I'd be doing stuff like either like physically in the classroom or like just doing something dedicated to like classwork. And then I'd like eat lunch from like 12 to 12:30, and then like take a quick nap before practice. So from like 12:30 to 1, I'd nap, and then practices would usually go like from at least 1 to 3. But then usually on some of the longer days, like maybe 1 to 4. And so like I'd typically be done, like ready to do something else by like 4:30 o'clock. So then I would go eat from like 5:30. And then after that, um, like just studying or just whatever like coursework I had left to do from like 6:30 to maybe like 10, 11-ish. And then I'd have like an hour just to kind of like unwind at the end of each day.
Mhm. So another question I have is, what did you major in?
Yeah, so at U Chicago, I was just an econ major, but at Notre Dame, I was also econ, but I was able to minor in accounting, and then they also do like this pretty unique like financial economics and econometrics concentration, so I did that also.
Okay. So Joanne also has a question, and it's, if you were to play a different sport, what would it be?
Um, that's a good question. I think if I had to play a different sport, I like track, but it's just really like individualized, so I would like to do something that's a team sport, so I don't know, maybe like soccer or something that also involves like a lot of running.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
No, we have one question from Rohaya. He asks, when did you start to like track, and like you decide to commit to it?
Um, I'd say it's really something I only started liking during high school. I like had done it like in middle school a little bit, but that was just really just as like an extracurricular thing, not something I actually enjoyed. But I'd say in high school, like I really like learned to like it just because it's kind of like very process and like detail oriented. So it was something where like I could like focus on something else outside of school pretty much, and it was just kind of like a nice escape or just secondary activity for me to do.
So Seth, I think you joined late. So I think he mentioned that he studied economics at U Chicago, and he studied economics at Notre Dame as well. We have an interesting question here. He says, who's your favorite like sports personality and like your sports teams, basically favorite sports teams and personalities?
Okay. I think in terms of favorite sports personality, it has to be LeBron James, just because he's the best at his sport. And he's also like really interesting, like really nice person, like just the things he does, like for charity also. So like I love LeBron, definitely team LeBron over team MJ. Um, and in sports teams, I like watching soccer. So like any of the English teams.
Maybe know who do you support in the Premier League? Yeah.
Uh, I'm a Manchester United fan.
Yeah, same here. I just want to know that. So. Dina, do you have a few questions? I think you were asking some, right?
Yeah, so a question that I had is why do you decide to transfer from U Chicago to Notre Dame?
Yeah, so I really wanted to stay at U Chicago just because of how like good of a school it is. But it, like just the circumstances didn't really work out because like the coach who had recruited me there, like he suddenly left and like took a job somewhere else. And then the new like coach who came in like was just complete opposite personality. So like the whole like culture of the team kind of changed there like after. And then like since like the academic environment there is like really intense, like I'd always like look forward like to like the older coach and like the culture he created just because it was just a nice change of pace. But then like when the new coach came in, like the team like track culture started to resemble like the academic culture. And so which for me like I don't know, I'd always like just needed to do something that was different from school. And so I just felt like I was just getting more of school just instead now on a track. So it was really just that like change of culture and just no longer really getting a break from like the like intense environment there.
I get that. Are there any more questions at this time? Or no?
Yeah, I actually had a personal question. I think it's to get your opinion on like American sports in general, right? So you said you like soccer, and soccer is
Mhm.
pretty famous worldwide. But I think one issue, I wouldn't say it's an issue, but there's something many people have observed that you don't see a lot of American soccer players being represented at like big European clubs, right? I think there's one Christian Pulisic. I think he's becoming like a star or like an inspiration for a lot of American soccer players. So why do you think is the reason that many American soccer players, I wouldn't say don't make it, but like why is that, why is there such less representation? Do you think there's still time left, or what do you think?
I just think the sports environment in America is pretty different because when you think of like American sports, you have like football, basketball, baseball, and then like soccer, like in terms of like the athletes, like they kind of have to compete with all those. Whereas like in a lot of the European or like Latin American countries, like pretty much the only sport they have there is soccer with like maybe a couple other minor sports. So I think you have in America like a lot of like the really good athletes. They're like kind of just doing like other sports that aren't soccer. So that's in my opinion, kind of why like there aren't as many good American soccer players because the good American athletes are like already doing like something else. Whereas like I think in like Europe and other countries, like their best athletes are playing soccer, which is why like most of the teams there like are like European or like Latin American like players.
Are there any other questions?
And they don't have to be sports related also. Like if you
Yeah.
guys have any other questions, like
So
So
yeah, we have a question from Micah. He asked, were there any activities or organizations that you joined in high school that influenced your decision to work in like the financial industry or study economics?
so I didn't really like join any clubs or anything in high school that like piqued my like economics and I don't know, I guess kind of finance interest. It was really just the AP Econ course that I don't know if they like still offer it, but I had taken that my senior year and the teacher she just did a really good job of like teaching it. And so that just like kind of like piqued my interest and was just something I wanted to like study about more. So I would definitely recommend like taking that either, I don't know, as in terms of like elective or just if you're kind of curious about like what economics is.
Yeah, and we had another question in the chat by Mian. Like, only if you're comfortable answering this, Anthony, what was your high school GPA? Like, if not, like if you're not comfortable saying what it is, it's totally fine. We can move on to the next question.
Okay. So that's kind of a long time ago. So, but if I remember, my high school was kind of weird. They did like a 5-point scale instead of 4. But I think my weighted GPA was like 5.4 or something. But it's on, I don't know what that would be on like a 4 scale.
Yeah, and we also have a private chat question from Rogella. I'll just ask it out loud. What are your advices for applying to colleges or general advice for high schoolers?
Oh yeah. So in terms of applying to colleges, my biggest piece of advice would be like to visit and just make sure like the culture is a good fit. Because ultimately like it's pretty much like the college you choose is where you're effectively like what your home is going to be for the next 4 years. So I would just like want you guys to make sure like it's somewhere like you actually like physically want to be. So I think like a visit and like seeing the culture is also some like two like very important things. And then it might not be like a concern right now, but especially like once you start college and you kind of start thinking about like what you want to do after, it's really helpful just to kind of look at like the courses like colleges offer and like I mean I guess if it like interests you or if it's something you'd want to study, because that's like really kind of why I wanted to transfer to Notre Dame is they had like this like financial econ and econometrics concentration that like U Chicago didn't really offer. So that was kind of like a big pull for me, because they like really met my like two checklist things, which were like a good like welcoming like friendly culture, and then they also had the academics too. So those are the two things I looked for. But yeah, I feel like each person is also going to have like their own like individual things too. But for me, those were like the main.
Just waiting for a few questions. They're just coming in one by one. Okay, yeah. So we have one question here. So it says that like because you're like interested in the finance industry and like now you're part of it, like what do you see yourself as? No, I won't say what do you see yourself as, but like what are your plans for at least the next 3 or 4 years in the finance industry itself?
Yeah, so in my job currently, like my title is research analyst. So like within our firm, that's a lot of like the risk analysis and also some like fundamental like stock picking analysis. So in terms of like where I would want to be in like 5 to 10 years is I would ideally like to do some of the more like fundamental like stock picking work instead of like the quantitative risk stuff. But I don't know, I'm not really picky as a person, just as long as like it just be within that field, I honestly wouldn't mind.
So like would you consider like other paths like consulting or entrepreneurship, like you're doing your own thing, or would you want to stick to that specific industry?
Yeah, so coming out of college, I was actually really interested in consulting also, like in terms of like what I wanted to do is definitely consulting and something in finance that were the main two. Um, but yeah, like just with how like collaborative consulting is and it's like just a lot of like creative problem solving, um, it's definitely like a field I wouldn't mind going into in the future. But uh, I don't know, I'm liking finance so far and like the investment management like industry. So um, yeah, not really looking to switch, but like consulting is definitely a great career path also.
Lena, did you receive any questions on your private chat? Because I think I missed some.
Yeah, I think one question that I got was like, what are your like future plans in like 5 years from now? Like, where do you see yourself as?
Uh, okay, so I don't know. That's something I personally haven't thought about that much, but I'm living in Chicago right now at home. So, well, just because my family is around here, I would hope that I'd still be around here. But then like professionally, um, I don't know. I think the ultimate goal would be just to eventually start my own fund and manage other people's money. Um, but in finance, there's definitely a big learning curve. So that would be like well down the road, just in terms of the amount of like information and just knowledge that a lot of like the portfolio managers in my like company have. It's definitely something that would be at least like 10, 15 years.
Okay, so we do have a hypothetical question here. It's about uh athletics again. He asked that he or she asked that did you ever consider being a full-time athlete, like a professional athlete ever? Like, you want to fully commit to this.
Yeah, I feel like it's something that every person who's like in a sport or actively doing a sport has like considered at some time. But for me, it was like my decision was ultimately around like weighing like the probabilities of me actually like making it and being a really good athlete. And so I'm 5'7", like 130 pounds, so my probability is very small. And then also for me, it was like just considering like the opportunity cost of like pursuing like a professional career, like especially if it's something that I wanted to try to do like after college. Um, like it would be like I wouldn't be working full time, so that's like a lot of wages I'd be missing out on. And then also like if it didn't work as an athlete, like it'd be kind of tough to like enter back into the job industry. So those were like my main concerns, but I don't know, I feel like each person is different.
Do you have any advice for like people who are like torn apart between what they really want to do? Like, they have one option ready, but they have another option ready as well. So like, what is your advice to someone like who's really torn apart between what they want to choose?
Yeah, like in terms of like schools or
No, like, taking
career.
like a safe route, but there's a risky route open as well. But like, you want to try the risky route, but then you're a bit unsure whether it'll work out or not.
Yeah, I don't know, my advice would be to like give the risky route like a significant like shot. Like definitely like if it's something you really like to do and like something you're passionate about, I would definitely try to pursue it if it's risky. But I would also just be sure like if it is risky, you set like limits. So if it's I don't know, if it's like a career you're trying to pursue, I would say like, okay, like it's something I definitely want to do and I'm like interested in it, but I'm only going to give myself like X amount of time to pursue it. So that way, like at least you're still like pursuing your dream, but also like it's not like since it is risky, it's something like you're putting limits on and in case it doesn't work out. So you always will like have like this alternate option.
So like flirting with your dream a little, but at the same time, being held back by like like realistic, being a bit realistic as well. Then, yeah.
Yeah, or I don't know. I would say like definitely try to realize your dream and like you could definitely like put in the time and effort to do so. Like I wouldn't just like discard it right away, like not at all. But I think it's also important just to maintain like a level head and like try to be like rational about it too.
Definitely. We have a question from me, and he asks, any tips for applying to U Chicago?
So I'd say the biggest thing for U Chicago is their essays. Just because a lot of the kids that are going to be applying there, their like resumes, I don't know if or your applications, like a lot of them are going to look pretty similar. And just from like me talking and like my experience like with the admissions process there, like the essays are really like the field where you can set yourself apart. So I would like in terms of like the application itself, like that's probably the component I'd focus on the most. And then yeah, in terms of like I guess if you're in high school now, um, like just make sure like you're maintaining like good grades and like trying to do as many like extracurriculars like as possible and things that you're like actually interested in.
Perfect. Yes, I think yeah, the essays are a bit they're pretty crucial as well.
Right.
Joanne asks, do you have a motto to go by?
A motto to go by. So I don't know. I think my personal motto is I feel like I got this from like the TV show The Good Place, but it's like happiness is other people. Just because I like helping others, and it's just I don't know, always something I like keeping in mind since a lot of times we can get like really like individually focused. And then I don't know. That's also I guess kind of like a work model as well, because in finance, like it's like sometimes difficult to keep track of like the fact that like the work you're ultimately doing like is for someone else. So like in the moment, like it's obviously a very like demanding job. So it's nice just to remember at times that like although you're spending a lot of time and effort and it's like it can be very stressful that what you're doing is ultimately for the benefit of someone else.
Yeah, so like having a net positive impact. Yeah, that's amazing.
Right.
So I think we'll wrap it up with one final question. It's from Arfat. He asks, how do you deal with stress and like tense situations?
Yeah. Um, so in terms of like a tense situation, I think it's just always important to just like kind of just have that trust in yourself and like just knowing that like I don't know whether it's like an exam or whether you're submitting a college application that like you put in like all the effort and like all the work in the past and like in the moment now it's just like the culmination of all that. And so I don't know whenever I'm feeling like stressful, I always just try to remind myself like just trust in like the stuff you've done in the past and that like it's just gonna come out and show in like in that moment.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Anthony, for all your insights on the college applications process. All right, so now we're just going to ask some fun this or that questions to wrap things up. So the first question that I had for you is vacation or staycation?
Ooh, I think for me it depends on where the vacation is. Like it'd probably be vacation, but it'd have to be like somewhere where I'm literally just gonna do nothing the whole vacation. But if it's like a touristy vacation where like I'm gonna be like, I don't know, like walking around a lot or like having to go sightseeing, I'd probably rather stay home at that point.
Yeah, like honestly, for my summer, I've done like nothing interesting. This is probably the most interesting thing I've done all summer, which is kind of pathetic, but it's the way things are in the COVID world. I don't know if anyone else could relate, but yeah. The next question is coffee or tea?
Oh, I have a coffee right next to me, so definitely coffee.
Yeah, and the next question is fiction or nonfiction?
Um, for books, probably nonfiction. Just because I kind of like to read stuff that I could like apply in my daily life. Um, but then for like TVs or movies or anything, definitely fiction.
Yeah, I love nonfictions too because they're just like really informative and things like that. And next question is salad or sandwich?
Um, so I'm gluten free, so the sandwiches I have are not that good. So probably salad.
Yeah, salads are good as well. But thanks so much, Anthony. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to connect with him on LinkedIn as well if you have any questions for him. And yeah, if everybody could say like thank you, Anthony, That'd be great.
So much,
But thanks so much
Anthony.
again.
Yeah, feel free to reach out if you have like any questions about like the application process, high school, or like career advice, just anything I could maybe potentially help you guys with.
Thank you so much. Wish you all the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you.
You
Thank you for
too.
being here.
Bye. All right, hey everybody, thank you all so much for coming. We ended this panel a bit early, but next panel we have, I believe it's choosing classes in high school and college, so don't miss it. It's gonna begin at 3 p.m. Eastern time, so feel free to leave and then come back at 3 p.m.
Okay, thank you.